Well, hello. Welcome to Sarah's Crafty Time. Since my mock-up from the last episode, I decided to take a closer look at the pattern and make some annotations to remind me to incorporate my ideas. I thought moving to the table would keep my fabric hunting pets at bay, but Callie seems to not mind inspecting my work anyway. The general things I suggest you gather if you're interested in skirt making include a set of good shears, a ruler, your pattern, and a tasty snack as motivation to get through this preparation stage. Today, I chose mochi. I know it may be tempting to jump right in like I did with the mock-up, but I promise you will appreciate your thoughtfulness later if you iron out your fabric before you cut. If you leave the wrinkles and folds in place, you could accidentally cut out a misshapen piece instead of your pattern. This is especially important if your pattern specifies a direction of the grain for your fabric. If your grain is off in direction, then the skirt might not fall or drape as it was intended to. After you finish ironing out your fabric, you can start cutting out your pattern pieces. At this point, my camera decided I was done filming for the day, so I have failed to bring you good snippy content. So please enjoy Callie attacking a fabric scrap as compensation. Okay, so now on to the meat of this episode, darts and pleats. I started off by pinning the darts together on the wrong side of the fabric, that way the sewn edge would be on the inside of the skirt. Then I got to play around with the fabric to try to get that nice pleat. I really like how this heavier fabric held the shape as I folded it. For the first try, I started with the fabric facing right side up, and I folded the mark of the edge of the pleat to the center line. That way both the left and the right side would meet together at the center. Then I flipped it over to straighten out the shape and add pins to hold the fold in shape for sewing. The second try I think was a lot easier. I started the same way as the first with the right side up. I folded the edge of the pleats to the center, but I straightened the fold while it was still right side up. To pin, I folded the fabric onto itself so that I could see the wrong side of the fabric up, and I added my pins for sewing. Since I didn't completely flip this piece around over and over, I didn't have a hard time trying to keep the folds in place while I was pinning. On to the sewing. I got this kit off Amazon that includes a few different size sewing needles and thimbles. I also found some cotton thread and some needle threaders, so it was pretty easy to just put on a rerun season of Star Trek and get to work. I found that working with a thread length about as long as my arm is the most natural for me, and I didn't run into much trouble with my thread knotting. I decided to do a back stitch on both the pleats and the darts, and I'm confident that they're not going to be coming apart soon. I just sewed straight across the top of the pleats on both of these skirt pieces, and it didn't take long before Bear decided I needed to take a fetch break. Here's a close-up of what my stitches look like. I was using the smallest needle in the kit. Because this fabric is relatively heavy, I wanted to make sure that I had a very small, sharp needle so that I could get through the fabric. Next, I moved on to what was the more difficult part in my mind, the darts. This was intimidating to me because I was trying to make sure that I had a very strong seam, as well as making sure that the dart length was about equal between the two sides. I was also pretty nervous that I would end up with a dimple situation at the bottom of the darts, but I figured I could come back and fix this later if it ends up kind of sad looking. To start, I just did a back stitch for the whole length of the dart, about 1/2 inch from the edge. Then I trimmed one piece of the fabric very close to the seam so that I could roll the longer edge over it. I then pinned that folded edge to the fabric, and I took my first shot at felling an edge. This is completed by picking up only a few threads of your main fabric with your needle and sewing it to the very edge of that rolled edge fabric. If you're interested in learning how to do either the backstitch or felling the edge seam, I highly suggest you check out Bernadette Banner's video. I'm relatively happy with my first round of work for both the darts and the felling edges. and I'm about to get a whole lot more practice as I approach the great hemming. Before that event, I'm planning for the next Crafty video to tackle the waistband, maybe the skirt lining. That should just leave the pockets, buttons, seams, and then the hem for another time. Until then, thanks for joining me, and happy crafting!